Good morning, class. It's Tuesday, April 14th, 2020. Today in math, we're going to learn about another shape. We're going to be learning about squares. You'll have a question about that on your Google quiz, which is in your Google Classroom. Underneath the morning announcements, in reading, you'll be back in your article about bats. Today, you're going to be telling me about 4 different words in the text, and those questions will be on your Google quiz, which is in your Google Classroom. In writing, we're going to be working on that final part of our celebrity dinner party. This is going to require you to have paper and pencil. In science, you're going to be making an animal group diagram using Pic Collage. And for prep, don't forget that the prep teachers have created a Google Classroom that you can check out for optional assignments. So, upcoming assignments, don't forget that celebrity dinner party is due April 17th. That's this Friday. And also this Friday, we're going to be having our first online test. Everyone needs to be on Meet at your assigned time. I will put up a schedule on Thursday. You need to check to see what time that you're scheduled to take your test. I will have you on Meet for about 10 minutes with 2 other students, and you guys will have a series of questions to answer. Those will go in for your final grade for report card time. There will also be a video attached to today's morning announcement that's going over the concept that this test is going to be on. This test is going to be on reading, writing, and comparing decimals. So if you feel like you've forgotten that or you're not sure, go ahead and check out that video. It'll be a short video and just kind of refresh your mind of what that looks like so that you can get a good score on Friday's test. All right, guys, so let's get into math. I have to say first off that you guys' Google quizzes today were fantastic. You guys are doing a wonderful job seeing the relationships between the shapes. And I told you in yesterday's video that I think this is a very difficult concept, and so I'm really pleased to see how well you're doing with this. So, and you can see here on my slides, Mrs. Hernandez has been doing some of these late. It says we're going to be learning about rectangles, but that's not true. We are going to be learning about squares. So words we're going to need to know, these are the same ones we've been going over, so hopefully you're starting to get these real down pat in your mind. Remember, a polygon is a many-sided shape. The sides do need to be straight and connected. A quadrilateral is a 4-sided shape. It's a type of polygon, but it only has 4 sides. And now we've learned that there's several 4-sided shapes, those being a trapezoid, parallelogram, rectangles, just to name a few. Closed, meaning that all the edges connect with one another. There's no openings or gaps. They connect there at the corners. Parallel, remember parallel means the lines run next to one another, equal distance, and never ever cross. So if I'm looking here in this square, I can see a set of parallel lines right here. These 2 lines would run next to each other forever and never cross. And then a right angle, if we're remembering that, those are those L-shaped corners, and I can see those very easily here with this square. Okay, so a square is a polygon. We were just talking about on the last slide, that is a a polygon is a many-sided shape. It is also a 4-sided shape in particular. So with that being said, that makes it a quadrilateral, and we can see that here we have 1 side, 2 sides, 3 sides, and 4 sides. So we have a polygon that's also quadrilateral, meaning it's a 4-sided polygon. A square is a closed shape. So like we were showing on our last slide, all of the edges of this square connect with one another. There's no openings or gaps. They all connect at those corners, real nice and neat. A square has 4 sides of an equal length. So this side here is the same size as this side over here. And these 2 sides are the same size as this side, which is also the same size as this side. All 4 sides are equal in length. And then a square also has 4 right angles. So I can see these L-shaped corners here. There's one here, 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 and here. So this is what you need to be a square. So our traits that are going to set it apart from some of the other quadrilaterals that we've learned about this week would be that all 4 sides are equal in length, like a rhombus, but also it has to have 4 right angles. A rhombus doesn't necessarily have to have right angles. All right, so let's talk about some commonalities we have. So far, we know that all the shapes we've learned about this week, the rhombus, the trapezoid, the parallelogram, the rectangle, and the square are all polygons. They're also all quadrilaterals. They all have 4 sides, and they're all closed shapes because each of their edges connect with one another. Now, let's find out, though, if a square is any of the rest of these shapes. So let's go ahead and start with where we began, which was the trapezoid. So to be a trapezoid, there's one trait that's going to stand out, which is that you have to have one set of parallel lines. So let's check out our square and find out if it does have one set of parallel lines. I'm going to go ahead and use this blue here. So right here, I can see a set of parallel lines. I see one set of parallel lines there. And since this square does have one set of parallel lines, then yeah, a square is a trapezoid. I'm going to write that down so we don't forget. So square is a trapezoid. Awesome. Okay, now parallelogram. To be a parallelogram, you have to have 2 sets of parallel lines. So let's check out our square here. We know that it had one set of parallel lines. Those were here and here. So let's see if it has 2 sets of parallel lines. Well, I see another set right here and here. These 2 sides would run next to each other forever and ever, equal distance, and would never cross. So, since this square has 2 sets of parallel lines, those being this set and this set, then this square is definitely a parallelogram. Awesome. Okay, let's go to a rectangle. To be a rectangle, you have to have 4 right angles. Let's check out our square. I see 1 right angle, 2 right angles, 3 right angles, 4 right angles. This square has 4 right angles, so I would say definitely this square could be a rectangle. It's kind of a funny rectangle because it's a rectangle where all 4 sides are the same length instead of being stretched out like a typical rectangle is. All right. And a rhombus. This is the shape we were just talking about. To be a rhombus, you have to have 4 equal length sides. So this rhombus, this side, sorry, my markers are getting in my way, this side and this side are all equal in length. So let's see if this is true of a square. Well, this side is the same length as this side, which is the same length as this side, and the same length as this side. So that would mean a square could also be a rhombus. So a square is each and every one of these shapes because it has the same trait that each of these shapes has that sets it apart. So how about the other way around? Now this one gets a little bit tricky, even for Mrs. Hernandez. So follow along and hopefully I don't make any mistakes here. Let's think about it the other way around. So we just figured out a square is each one of these, but are any of these also a square? So to think about that, it's really important that we remember what it takes to be a square. These are the traits we're looking at. So if any of these shapes, other shapes, have these same traits, 4 equal length sides and 4 right angles, then they could be a square. So let's start again where we began, which is the trapezoid. So a trapezoid, does it have 4 equal length sides? Well, this one's pretty easy to see. Here and here are not equal in length. Now these other 2 sides are, but I've only got those 2. So because it doesn't have 4 equal length sides, I don't even need to look about right angles. This is not going to be a square. It's not a square. Let's look at our parallelogram. So does a parallelogram have 4 equal length sides? Well, looking at this particular example, I would say no. these sides are a little bit longer than these sides. It also does not seem to have 4 right angles. I would say in a typical case, a parallelogram is not a square. Now, Mrs. Hernandez might check into that just to make sure that there aren't any exceptions. All right, for a rectangle, does it have 4 equal length sides? Well, typically speaking, no. These 2 are equal length, and these 2 are equal length. It does have 4 right angles. Those are here, 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 and here. But it doesn't have the 4 equal length sides. So in a typical case, a rectangle would not be a square. And then the rhombus. Does the rhombus have 4 equal length sides? Well, yes, it does. That's what makes it a rhombus. So it does meet that requirement of a square. Does it have 4 right angles? Well, in the particular example Mrs. Hernandez has here, it doesn't. But we did talk about this yesterday, that it could have 4 right angles, but if it did have 4 right angles, we would call it a square. So, could a rhombus be a square? Yeah, as long as it has right angles, which then makes it a square. Okay guys, so right now would be a good time to pause the video, go to your Google Classroom, and find your quiz for the day, and begin to answer your questions. I have a few less questions than yesterday's, but like I said, I feel like this material is kind of tricky, so I think it would be wise to go ahead and start that quiz now. I saw one of your fellow classmates yesterday took out a notebook and a pencil, and they took notes while the video was playing. They wrote down things they thought that maybe they'd have a hard time remembering, and it really paid off because that student did very well on their quiz. So if that would help you, maybe try that as well. Alright guys, so for reading today, we're going to be back into our short story called Bats, and today we're going to be using context clues. You guys did this last week and you did a pretty good job with it. So when we use context clues, what we're doing is we're reading around a word that we may not know in a text, and we're trying to figure out what that word means, not by asking anyone or using a dictionary, but just by reading around the word. I always like to read the sentence that the word is in first and see if there's enough of a hint or clue in that sentence to help me understand the meaning of the word. If there isn't enough, then sometimes I'll read the sentence before the word again and read the sentence after that word again to see if that will help me understand the meaning of the word. Today you're going to be looking for 4 words in particular. Those are going to be pollinator, nocturnal, wingspan, and echolocation. So as you are reading, make sure that you listen carefully for those words and see if you can figure out their meanings. Once you've finished reading the article and particularly paying attention to those words, then you need to go to your Google quiz and answer your question. Right now would be a good time to pause this video so that you can do that. Alright guys, so today in science, I'm going to have you guys go to Pic Collage and make a collage of one animal from each of the animal groups that we've learned so far. Now, I'm talking specifically about the vertebrate animal groups. So those vertebrate animal groups, the animals that have a backbone, are the mammals, reptiles, birds, amphibians, and fish. So I want you to find a Pic Collage grid maybe, or you can do freestyle that's going to have 5 blocks. You're going to put an animal in each of those categories, and then you're going to label it, which group it belongs to. The last thing you're going to do is you're going to list traits that help you know it is part of this group. You need at least 3 traits. You can just type this in or add extra pictures. And I have an example on the next slide for you. So here's an example that I made. So if I were doing mammals, I might choose a giraffe. It's one of my favorite animals. And then I would list some things that help me know that it's a mammal. For example, giraffes have a backbone. That's part of being a mammal, is that you have to have a backbone. They also have fur or hair. That's another trait that helps me know that it's a mammal because mammals have to have fur or hair. They are warm-blooded. I chose this picture because warm-blooded animals often will sweat or maybe find shade or other means of cooling down. And they have to feed their young milk. That's another trait of a mammal. So you're going to do this in your pic collage, and you'll turn that pic collage in on Seesaw. Okay, so for writing today, again, we're just going to be working on that last part of our celebrity dinner party essay today. Remember, this should be the part that fixes your problem and should wrap up your problem. This essay is due Friday. If you're already finished with it though, remember that you read it out loud, make sure it makes sense. Editing is important. We'll put up the rainbow editing here soon. And I was working with one of your classmates on writing yesterday, and one thing that I found that was really great is as we reread over what had been written, we would look at each sentence and say, could I add a detail in this sentence? Could I add a color? Could I add a number? Could I add the way something smells or tastes or feels or sounds? So we started doing that, and we found lots of areas where we could add, and the story just came to life, and it was a lot easier to visualize, and it made it way more interesting for me as the reader. So make sure that you think about those sorts of things as you write your narrative. You want somebody to actually want to read it. App of the day. Again, I would like you to spend 15 to 30 minutes on Freckle each day this week. Like I said, no one's been able to pass off a whole section yet. Let me know if you can do it. How to pass off a section. Remember, start in a section that you've passed off the most levels, and then keep answering the questions the best you can. If you're not certain of it and it's early in the morning, come on to meet and I can see if I can help you on it. No more than 15 to 30 minutes on this. Remember, I do get a daily email and I can see how you've been progressing on here. Last thing, as I said at the beginning, don't forget that I did attach a code for a new Google Classroom. I'll attach it to today's morning announcement as well. And that code is going to let you into a new Google Classroom that's for your prep teachers. And they've put together some activities you can do for their various classes. I will also be attaching another code because Mrs. LaShamina is still going to try to do the 5th Grade's Got Talent. I'm not certain how this is going to work, but if you were interested in doing the talent show this year, since we're not at school, they're still going to do a digital version of this. So if it's something that you're interested in, make sure you check out that code and look into that for yourself. So this is all I have for you guys today. Thanks for all your hard work. Tomorrow will be Wednesday. Tomorrow there will be no video. You guys will just be working on iStation, iReady, and Quill. I will put that in the morning announcements so that you'll know exactly what you'll be doing. All right, guys, have a great day.